Good morning. Again, my name is Keith Gunter, and I am co-chair of Alliance to Halt Fermi 3 with my other co-chair, colleague and friend, Carol Eisen, right there. And the Alliance to Halt Fermi 3 is a union of concerned citizens and 15 Southeast Michigan organizations that are dedicated to the abandonment of DTE Energy's plans to build a third Fermi nuclear reactor in Southeast Michigan near Monroe. I want to take this opportunity to thank WILPF, both national and local, for this wonderful opportunity to present to you today. In particular, I'd like to thank Kay Cumbo and Laura Perot and Laura Dewey as well as Ellen, of course. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to such a dedicated, dynamic group of people that has been doing so much good work on so many issues for so long that I'm truly humbled here. The title for my presentation today is Fermi 3, Relapse, Not Renaissance. And what I mean by that is that that title underscores the reality that faces the U.S. nuclear power industry today, both locally here in Southeast Michigan and also nationally. Here in Southeast Michigan, reality is embedded in the history of Detroit Edison Company and later to become DTE Energy, with their troubled history with the Fermi 1 nuclear reactor, which had a partial meltdown on October 5th, 1966. Actually, that was the eve of my 11th birthday, and I had just been on a class field trip to Fermi 1 as a, well, I'm not going to tell you what grade I was in, but in September of 1966, we were actually at the site in the what was the display area. You could actually see the dome out the window, and you know, I bought the gee whiz about nuclear power at that point in time, but DTE's troubled history doesn't stop with the partial meltdown at Fermi 1. Of course, Fermi 2, which began construction in 1968, was originally projected to cost $228 million. It ended up costing $5 billion. Took nearly 20 years to build, and now we know that it is the largest Fukushima design reactor in the world. So this is particularly significant as DTE Energy is now seeking a 20-year license extension on the existing Fermi 2 plant. And the current license isn't even up until 2025, so they want to operate this thing until the year 2045. And the significance of that is that the particular reactor containment design at Fermi 2, as I said, is the same as that failed at Fukushima Daiichi in March of 2011. And there's a little history behind that I need to give to you. And you know, we're building from Fermi 1 to Fermi 2 to Fermi 3. In the 1980s, 3 General Electric nuclear engineers actually resigned their jobs in protest around technical deficiencies in the reactor containment design of what is known as a General Electric boiling water reactor Mark I design. Later, a senior reactor safety specialist at the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Harold Denton, predicted that in a severe accident scenario involving the GE BWR Mark I, that the probability of failure of that containment design would be 90%. What we actually saw on March the 11th, 2011 was a failure rate of 100%. because 3 of the 6 reactors that were operating at the Fukushima site at that time all suffered catastrophic failure. As a matter of fact, I have another little personal story about that. On the morning of March the 11th, 2011, I got a call from my older brother, Paul, who is the head of the Reactor Watchdog Project at Beyond Nuclear in suburban Washington, D.C., Tacoma Park, Maryland. And he told me that he had information that subsequent to the earthquake and the tsunami at the Fukushima, near the Fukushima site, that at least one meltdown was underway, and that he was being called to CNN studios in Washington, D.C. So he went straight to the studio in street clothes and did a 10-minute interview with Jean Mazur, who at the time was the senior Homeland Security correspondent for CNN. And at the 10-minute interview, they used about 8 seconds of my brother's interview at the end of Wolf Blitzer's Situation Room program on March the 11th, 2011. And what he said in that 8-second snippet was this, quote, "The concern here is that we could literally blow the roof off of this reactor." Well, after that quote in the story, a spokesperson from NEI, Nuclear Energy Institute, which is the chief public relations outfit for the nuclear power industry, immensely powerful, multi-million-dollar budgets, said that the probability of that happening was extremely remote. Well, what do you suppose I saw the first thing I turned on Saturday morning on CNN? And that was the first Fukushima reactor building exploding, a hydrogen gas explosion. What I told the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission at the Fermi 2 relicensing hearing a few days ago was that my brother was not clairvoyant. Clairvoyance was not a power necessary to predict this. As I indicated, the 3 GE engineers, Harold Denton, it was widely known in the industry that this was a defective design. So Fukushima continues today. The accident is not over. I think we all know that. Has the potential of getting even worse than it's already been. But I will segue to the last bit of historical context for this, and then I'll get to Fermi 3. The nation's mountain of high-level radioactive waste is nearly 60 years high. We've been generating nuclear waste commercially since 1957, and so there's now approximately over 70,000 metric tons of the most radioactive stuff on the planet sitting in storage pools at reactor sites around the country, and we haven't the slightest idea of where we're going to put this stuff. Because Yucca Mountain, the site that was originally identified, has been abandoned. It's basically a $10 billion hole in the ground. So this is an industry that has enjoyed, the nuclear power industry has enjoyed $500 billion or more of U.S. taxpayers' subsidy. As I said, they have a mega lobby on Capitol Hill that has a stranglehold on the United States government. And of course, they have their public relations machine that sells lies and half-truths about nuclear power. And I know you've all heard them. Nuclear power is safe. Nuclear power is economical. It is an important way to reduce foreign oil imports. And the latest one is that it actually is an effective tool in combating climate change. All of these things are false. So as I said, that brings us to Fermi 3. It is a so-called advanced design reactor. What I mean by that is that it relies more on natural forces like gravity and convection rather than pumps and motors to operate systems. And you know, it's ironically termed an economic simplified boiling water reactor. ironically termed because the last time we checked the price tag, Fermi 3's cost is approaching $20 billion, and they've barely started, actually they haven't even started construction, they're just doing pre-construction work. So DTE applied to the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission in September of 2008 for what is known as a combined operating license application. And it is true that the Atomic Safety Licensing Board of the NRC recently voted 3-0 to approve Fermi 3's proceeding. However, there is a wrinkle. The ASLB recently essentially agreed with interveners that there will have to be an environmental impact statement associated with the 29-mile long electrical construction corridor that will be necessary if Fermi 3 is built. That's good news because that means that the project, which is already 3 years behind schedule, will be even placed behind schedule even further and with additional cost. And with the cost of not just Fermi 3, but all nuclear reactors anywhere you look in this country or around the world, the costs are heading straight for the stratosphere, while the potential for renewable power, particularly wind and solar, is becoming ever more apparent. So, we have to remember also that this so-called renaissance of nuclear power is only being made possible at all because of the fact that the U.S. government has offered some $60 billion in loan guarantees for the construction of new reactors. As I said, Fermi 3 alone could cost $20 billion or more. So we're looking at 3 reactors that might be built, and
at Fermi?
no, 4. Well, 3 reactors could be constructed at Fermi 3's price using the loan guarantees. Beyond that, the funding would be dried up. So I guess I'll just close by saying that in spite of the hazards, the cost, a reactor like Fermi 3 has never been built before. As a matter of fact, I think that the strategy here is that they want to build one of these reactors in America so they can mass market it to places like India. And we need to keep in mind that electrical growth projections for the state of Michigan show that Fermi 3's electricity is not even needed. So that leaves us with the slogan that the Alliance to Halt Fermi 3 came up with in our marketing workshop a couple of years ago, that Fermi 3 is a gamble we can't afford. And I think, given what I've told you today, that that is apparent. Thank you.
Thank you.